Good evening. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you to the school board meeting this Tuesday, August 15th, 2023. The public is encouraged and welcome to address the school board at the hearing of citizens. The board clerk, Kathy Tompkins, will be collecting the cards at the hearing of citizens. And once we begin hearing of citizens, no more cards will be collected, and I will call you forward at the appropriate time. Today, now that we're back in school, our student representative is Bryson Day, and he will be leading us in the pledge. Please stand. Also, please welcome Venice High JROTC under the direction of Frank Troxel.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which we stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Beautifully done. Thank you again, Venice High School JROTC. And again, as I mentioned, I'd like to welcome Bryson Day from Venice High School. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
As I said, my name is Bryson Day. I'll be representing Venice High School. I'm a junior at Venice High School. I also do the dual enrollment program part-time this year, and I'll be doing it full-time next year. And I'm also a part of the engineering program at the Venice High School. Notable clubs that I'm in are the Coexistence Club, which I'm the president of, and Drug-Free Youth, which I recommend to everybody to participate in just to keep Venice, Florida, or just Florida in general, a drug-free environment. I work at a retirement home called Village on the Isle. I serve them food, beverages, and I just communicate with the residents there. I love to play basketball, and my dream is to be a mechanical engineer at the Ohio State University.
Well, thank you again. I know earlier I provided you with a certificate of appreciation, which you mentioned your mom will probably frame for you. And I want to thank your mother, who is also a teacher here at Sarasota County Schools. So thank you for joining us today. Moving on to the next item of business is the superintendent's report. Mr. Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this week, I'm very glad to say we are back in session. So first day of school. I wanted to just share with you a little bit of some of the highlights from that time. And on the very first slide here, and I think we'll get it up in the room here in a second, met a young gentleman in the car line at Brookside Middle School, and he had a unique name. His name was Terry. So I definitely had to get a picture with Terry. So he had a good first day, and you can see mom's like, peace, go to school. It's summer's over. We got to go. You got to go. So it was great. A lot of great things happening on social media and sharing of what's happening around our district. So we had a great little competition. We wanted to see those first day pictures. So we had great comments from our families just about what's going on the first day. And you can see in that last picture that dad is very excited that summer is over with. Want to just highlight our Sarasota Cares campaign. We had a great one to display here from Toledo Blade Elementary. Miss Shaver, she went above and beyond after one of her students was in a terrible car accident. She took the time to visit him at home and on the weekend and bring him lots of gifts and cards from every classmate. And we're so very grateful for this act. She was a very kind and thoughtful person. So we always want to take time to recognize some of the great things that are happening in our district. So often we are so preoccupied with the day-to-day and the operations that we need to stop and take a break and really highlight the great things that people go above and beyond in their duties. So thank you, Ms. Shaver, for all you do at Toledo Blade Elementary. As always, with the start of school, there's a lot of conversations in the media and concerns lately nationally around the teacher shortage and the vacancies. So I wanted to provide and update some data around our current instructional and non-instructional vacancies. Currently, we are at a 98% fill rate in our classrooms. So we have 25 elementary classrooms that are still vacant, 6 non-classroom instructional vacancies, and 20.6 counselors. In middle school, we have 7 classrooms, 2 non-classrooms, at high 11, and other 8 classrooms and 3 non-classrooms. I'm happy to report we've had an excellent fill rate. So all of these classrooms have been covered with substitutes or another highly qualified certified teacher that may not be tied to students. It could be an instructional coach that come in to fill in some of those vacancies. So while we still have work to do in filling our classroom vacancies at the schools, I am happy to report that we are at least at 98%, and we're working to get to 100%, and our sub rate has been well over 96% every day so far. Well, 93% on the 14th, which was yesterday. So we're good there. In terms of non-school-based vacancies, so in transportations, we do have 10, but we also have all of our routes are covered. So kids are able to get to school on time, and hopefully without too many distractions in traffic, they are getting home on time as well. But happy to report in our transportation department that all of our routes are covered, and that is a great testimony and a lot of work, contribution to this board making a decision to ensure that we fill those positions. Transportation attendants, we have 6, facilities, custodial 17, and food service 13. So what's happened with our new hires? Just from April 1st to August 11th, we have hired a total of 528 employees. Classified 219, instructional 297, and administrative 12. Want to just introduce some of our new leadership that will be coming to the district. I do have a comprehensive cabinet that I will be publicizing very soon, but I wanted to at least highlight some of the new faces that will be joining us. We have Ms. Rachel O'Day, Deputy Superintendent, Chief Academic Officer, who's joining us from Hillsborough County. Dr. Megan Green, Chief of High Schools, who is joining us from St. Lucie County Public Schools. Jennifer Manelli, Chief of Elementary, is currently leaving MGT, but has come from Massachusetts in her leadership experience. And then Chris Parento, Supervisor of Government Affairs, has had an extensive career in communications. So they will be joining us, and we should have the whole team, this team, and then all of our new people who have shifted. We have some individuals who are on staff who have shifted around that will be all in place on Monday the 21st, ready to rock and roll. And again, thank the board for giving me the flexibility to bring some people on board that's going to help us move this district to where this board wants to take it. So thank you. So as the school's back in session, and I am in, I believe, day 21 of the transition. Through that 100-day plan, there is definitely opportunities to hear from the community. And I want to make sure that I'm out geographically across this county to hear from our constituents. So you will hear, and we're publicizing our superintendent listening tours. We're going to begin at Venice High School on next Tuesday, and we'll get all of this information out today publicly or tomorrow to the community, so this will all be out there. We're going to meet at 5 p.m. for staff. So all staff in the Venice area will meet at the VPAC or the Venice Cafe. We're still determining where that will be. So it'll be staff from 5 to 6, and then it'll be the community from 6 to 7. And that will be at every one of these locations. So there'll be an hour for each and, extension if need be. So we'll take some time to get input. We'll be using some technology to capture your feedback so that we can aggregate that, take that so I can kind of digest it, analyze it to think about what next steps need to occur to ensure Sarasota County continues on its path to excellence. So we're going to be at Venice, Northport, Booker, Riverview, and then we'll also have a virtual session for those who haven't had an opportunity to meet one of those places. Okay. Want to highlight Booker Middle School just recently received a School of Distinction Award, CFES Brilliant Pathways. Booker Middle School developed and executed an exemplary plan for its scholars and involved the entire school and was recognized with this distinction. So let's congratulate Booker Middle School for becoming a school of distinction. And so just a reminder what we do for every student every day. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, and I do want to welcome everyone back, and I would be remiss if I didn't highlight again on the transportation piece. At the beginning of the year, there's always adjustments, all of us in traffic especially, but usually each year we'd get some feedback through transportation, some other issues as well, but I will say it was very, very smooth this year. And if I think back to last year, it was a much different time. And I'm very grateful that we are able to fill those positions and make sure everyone is getting to school safely. Moving on to the hearing of citizens. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. When the timer flashes yellow, 1 minute remains and you will need to begin to summarize. Please stop speaking when the buzzer rings. Please note that respect for divergent viewpoints and civility will be shown at every board meeting. Whether you agree or disagree with a speaker, please listen politely and respectfully without making any sounds of approval or disapproval, including clapping. We recommend jazz hands. I recognize there's a lot of passion and emotion with the decisions that do come before this board and the impact that they have on our students, families, staff, and community. As such, we believe it is important that we afford the opportunity for every speaker to be heard. To my fellow board members, any comments during hearing of citizens that you would like to respond to will take place at the conclusion of public comment. My request is that you respond, my request that is if you respond, you keep it to the issues that have been brought forward and refrain from directing it to any individual member of the public. Per statute 1001.372, parent 3, anyone causing a disruption will first be given a warning, and if the conduct does not stop, will be asked to be removed from the chambers. But we will not have that today. So everyone will be on great behavior. Starting first with Mrs. Barbara Vaughn and then Lieutenant Colonel Duffy Smiley. And Lieutenant Colonel Smiley, I forgot my pen. So I'm just going to put myself out there. I apologize. You have yours.
Good afternoon. Is the mic on?
I can't hear you. Hold on 1 second. Hold her time, please. Can we double? You want to say check mic 1, 2?
Check mic 1.
There you go.
2. Is that better? Okay. Yes, now I can hear it. I'm Barbara Vaughn, citizen of Venice, Florida. And as you know, I come before you to pray. I pray a lot for all of you, but I want to pray specifically for each of you tonight. I want to pray for our new superintendent. I hope you're going to surprise me, sir. I really do. I pray for Robin and for Karen, and I pray that you will remember who the people were who elected you and what they expect from you. I pray for Bridget, that I hope and pray that she can keep this insane bunch together and keep it under control. Tim Enos, I pray for you. Welcome back. We're so glad that you're back with us in person, and I'm sorry you've had such a bad time, but I will pray for your continued healing. Mr. Edwards, I think you know I pray for you a lot. I pray that you would be found by him, our dear Lord, and that you will turn your life around. I pray that our kids will be safe from gun violence, which you seem to be very concerned about. But I am more concerned about the challenges that our kids are faced by people who speak terrible things about their sexuality, about grooming them. These are the things I worry about in school. Mr. Dugan, I'm glad you're here every week to keep us going and to keep us hopefully legal and on the right track. And our student representative today is somebody who can be very proud, and I'm sure your mother's very proud of you. In fact, I'm sure your whole family is. Lord Jesus, you hear my prayers as you hear all of our prayers, and we thank you, Lord, that you do listen. Because you bend down and listen, I will pray as long as I breathe. Amen.
Thank you. Lieutenant Colonel Duffy Smiley, Werther Marcellus.
So my wife recently had cataract surgery, so she sees much better now, but unfortunately she was looking at me the other day and said, you know, you're not really that good looking. I'd like to talk about Mrs. Ziegler's position with the Leadership Institute and some people saying that it's a conflict of interest. I believe quite the opposite is true. As VP of the Leadership Institute Board Member Education, Ms. Ziegler plays a role in educating board members across the country. On Friday, the Leadership Institute opened its headquarters for board member education in Sarasota. That makes Sarasota the national center of board member education. That's a win for Sarasota, and it's a win for Mrs. Ziegler. The Leadership Institute teaches school board candidates and active board members how to campaign, message, fundraise, teaches active school board members financing, leadership, and board communications. The training is conducted nationwide with some conferences held in Sarasota, with people coming from around the nation to attend those. The training must be good, as I have seen Lisa Schur and Carol Lerner at the LI training, so it's got to be good. Bridget, as VP, has a national reach to school board members across the country. She's an acknowledged expert and sought-after speaker across the nation and in national media. She has a nationwide network of school board members and educational policymakers. The bottom line is her leadership in the Leadership Institute complements her role here as chairman of the Sarasota School and enhances Sarasota's influence both locally and nationwide. Mr. Connor, you have 3 totally amazing women working for you up there on the board, Ms. Ziegler, Ms. Rose, and Ms. Marinelli. Among them, they have over 70 years of experience in educating children in unique roles. They've witnessed an awful lot of superintendents. I don't always agree with them, but I always listen to them with respect. I admire their knowledge of education. I admire how they stick to their principles. I admire how they operate with grace under fire. And I admire their impact on education both locally and nationally. These women are totally amazing.
Thank you very much. Werther Marcialis, Dr. Michael Weddle. And did I pronounce your name correctly?
You did pretty good. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm here to speak on the motion to remove the Department of Innovation and Equity, which I fully support. And to illustrate why I support this motion, I think we should discuss the difference between equality and equity. Equality of opportunity is obviously something that's desirable at all levels of society. We want all of our students to have an equal opportunity to attain a good education, to have success in life, to be able to not have their intrinsic characteristics used as evaluation for whether they deserve to get a job, whether they deserve to go to university, as the Supreme Court has just recently ruled. So equality of opportunity is desirable, but it does not guarantee equality of outcome. But that is what equity seeks to do. Equity seeks to guarantee equality of outcome regardless of ability. In what Dr. James Lindsay would say is an attempt to correct perceived current or historical wrongs. But the way to correct those historical injustices in this country, of which there are many, and we have strived greatly to overcome, we do not want to make everyone the same, because we are not the same. It is against human nature to make everyone have equal outcomes. We must instead pursue equality of opportunity. So what does this department on its own website claim to pursue? Well, it's a run-of-the-mill DEI program. The description on the website says it seeks to systemically implement educational equity and increase the recruitment of diverse staff. In other words, instead of focusing on delivering equality of opportunity, which again is desirable, and helping students reach their full potential, the Department of Innovation and Equity is attempting to implement, according to its own description, equality of outcome among students and racial quotas for faculty hiring. This is obviously corrosive to education and is corrosive at any level of society, and I urge all our school board members to get rid of this department. And I urge our Superintendent Connor, because you are not going to get rid of the staff members that currently run this department, and I'm glad that they will have a new role. I urge you to make sure that they do not engage in any of these diversity, equity, inclusion practices in their new roles, and that they are held accountable. Because it's one thing to simply remove the department and remove the damaging language, but we must also make sure that in practice, these things do not happen. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Dr. Michael Weddle, Sebastian Gersel.
Hi, I am Dr. Weddle, and I want to give you my medical opinion that this is not an insane bunch. So that's my medical opinion. Seems every time we want to take politics out of classrooms, it gets dragged back in. Now it's the Florida acronym politics: ban ESG, ban CRT, ban SEL, continuing. Without question, things like budget language needs to be politically correct. I get that. I also get that it's in Florida law that it requires the teaching of every one of the 5 CASEL competencies. That's in our statute: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. It's also in state statute that schools have mental health assistance programs and provide evidence-based mental health services. Call me naive, I never thought that would have been controversial. I was disturbed after the last meeting. Teen suicides have doubled in just 10 years. It seemed like that might be okay with some people, or at least they don't believe it could ever happen to their child. Let me assure you how wrong that is. One of the worst parts of my profession was telling parents in the ER that their child was deceased. They teach us to be quick, to not give any false hope. Look them in the eyes and just say, "I'm sorry, your child is dead." What they don't teach us is how to sleep afterwards. No parent ever said they were glad the school didn't try harder to save their child. When a child is at risk, a teacher may be the only person they think they can trust. Maybe the teacher is the only person they can trust. That's what we want our teachers to be. I went home after the last meeting thinking some might disagree. Maybe Moms for Liberty disagrees. Reading, writing, and arithmetic. Do they tell board members at the Institute how to justify a child's passing when all the adults had their head in the sand? If a child dies reading at grade level, is it high fives all around? Those of you with experience in schools know what needs to be done. The number one killer of children in our American culture is gun politics, the unnatural worship of guns. We do not need to find other ways to sacrifice children on the altar of adult politics, like the politics of denying the needs of young people. Thank you.
Thank you. Sebastian Gersel, and then Sebastian Martinez. Sorry about that. The Sebastians.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Members of the school board, Superintendent Connor, I am Sebastian Gerstel, a junior at Riverview High School. And today I am here in absolute support of agenda items 28 and 30. First, I am here in support of removing the ineffective and destructive Innovation and Equity Department and having it replaced with the Department of Strategic Engagement. The nature of the Innovation and Equity Department is inherently disruptive to the school environment, as currently all it does is divert tax dollars from students to administrators and failing systems. Additionally, it does not align with the values of Sarasota residents. Furthermore, on this issue, I strongly compel Mr. Connor to cut the rot out of Sarasota schools by terminating the current Director of Innovation and Equity. There is no reason for an administrator that has worked against the students to continue to work for Sarasota schools or continue to collect an outrageously high salary, and I emphasize outrageously high. Finally, I compel all board members to vote in favor of suspending the strategic plan. The current strategic plan is fundamentally flawed. I could go page by page explaining this, but all one has to do is view page 6. Here is page 6 of the strategic plan. It lists the core values of Sarasota schools, which according to this are belonging, citizenship, honesty, respect, and responsibility. As you may notice, the words education, academics, success, prosperity, or excellence are not core values of Sarasota schools. This is a trend that continues throughout the entire strategic plan, which explains why and how Sarasota schools have taken such a dramatic turn south. Because this district has lost track of its actual purpose, academics. So I empower you all to reject fraud, misdirection, and waste, and instead embrace merit, growth, and accountability by removing the Department of Innovation and Equity, terminating its current director, and suspending the strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Sebastian Martinez? Liz Barker?
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Sebastian Martinez, and again, I am a graduate from Booker High School. I've been doing my best to stay focused on student achievement while ignoring online political distractions. The last 2 times I spoke, I focused on specific issues like language barriers for families that do not speak English and engaging those parents in their children's education. Then I spoke to increasing bus transportation accessibility for students so that they can have the opportunity to participate in extracurriculars, study halls, networking, or sports, which I feel is the main theme around most of what I advocate for, opportunity. Today, given school just started and we have our first student rep, I wanted to use my time to talk about increasing student representation in our district. Students, like teachers, across our district have a unique perspective. This school board makes decisions that impact them, be it through policies like dress code, the buildings they learn in, or technology they use. As a board member, it's your charge from our community to maintain and increase academic excellence, keep our students safe, and help ensure that your teachers and students have the best experiences and resources they can throughout their educational journey. Currently, we have one or a handful of meetings where a couple of students from each school met with the board and superintendent and got to go over some issues that they face, which isn't enough. We have a student rep on the dais, which I know is a bright student and talented individual, since he used to be one of my teammates when I did gymnastics in high school. We have this student and so many other amazing students that come to the dais, but they don't seem to be afforded the opportunity to input or actually represent students. Something I would like to see would be more interaction or questioning of, say, the student rep for student-related decisions, to see board members actively and consistently attending the schools and engaging with students at student events, like how Mr. Edwards attended Sebastian and I's event, asking them questions, their input. Because at the end of the day, they feel the direct impact of every decision you make. Create a committee or council for students, get students of various backgrounds and political beliefs, but bottom line, listen to their voices. And I know this hasn't been motion, and it was only posted by the Sarasota Young Republicans and spoken about earlier, so I don't want to be too. But I wanted to give my perspective of equity, so we do not allow our community to fall down a dangerous rabbit hole. Equity issues are very present in our district. Our students, teachers, and families face inequities every day. From lack of access to books, buses, hungry kids, that is inequity, and we cannot act like it does not exist. Well, I would agree to question the effectiveness of the Equity Committee, meeting only 4 times a year and that decreasing over time, and I'm for revamping it. But something I know Sebastian Gerstel is not opposed to, unless I'm wrong, is increasing student voice. Part of the reason the Equity Committee came about was students, like him and I, wanting a seat at a table. We cannot let those who have less to be left behind because they might not have the same resources, because it's human nature. That is dangerous and that is wrong. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Liz Barker, Lila Newcomb.
Superintendent Connor, board members, good evening. I'm Liz Barker, mom of 4 children in Sarasota County Public Schools, and I've spoken here a number of times as a parent, but I'm here tonight as both a parent and an experienced educator. As a former school psychologist, I spent a great deal of time helping students with a wide variety of behavioral, social, and emotional needs. I've become increasingly concerned as social and emotional learning is repeatedly vilified in this county. Education does not occur in a vacuum. It would be great if children came to school every day prepared to learn without any other worries or outside factors, but that is simply not realistic. Teachers and support staff must be prepared to help students who may be experiencing any number of environmental stressors. Part of preparing our children to be successful after graduation involves teaching them the social and emotional skills they will need as adults. Employers report that having a growth mindset, empathy, and active listening skills are all highly marketable. These are the same skills that allow our students to be effective learners in the classroom. Our families and educators deserve to be represented by school board members who will make decisions based on the best interest of students and not on politically charged rhetoric. This community needs board members who are trustworthy and transparent. Parents of children in our schools deserve to have a voice and a seat at the table when it comes to educational decision-making. It is time for us to put aside the distractions and political divisions and bring the focus back to student success. It is time that the rights of all parents and students be respected. It is time to support our teachers and work with them instead of against them. It is for these reasons that I filed this morning to run for the District 2 school board seat. I know that together we can be agents for change in our communities and schools, and I hope to serve in that capacity as a school board member who represents all families in Sarasota County. Thank you.
Thank you. Lila Newcomb and Thomas. I need glasses. Can you see that? And Thomas R. Lila Newcomb, you're up.
Leela,
I'm sorry. I should know this by
You
now.
did it
My
again.
apologies.
Anyway, I'm grandma of 3 in Sarasota Public Schools. I think everybody knows that by now. Back in the age of the dinosaurs, I minored in philosophy. Now, do I remember much of it? No. But what did slam me in the face back then and still sticks with me today is the subject of logic. I love logic. And when I hear something that does not make sense, red flags go up. And I'm not sure I've heard any of you guys do this. I'm 75, I don't remember everything, but I know some of your family and friends do this all over the internet. And the biggest logical fallacy that is constantly an issue is what is called the ad hominem attack, Latin meaning to the person. Definition or application, arguing a point based on an opponent's character rather than by an answer to the contentions made. Broad example, this person is a liberal or this person is a right-winger, therefore what they are saying cannot be true. Or this person wears mismatched socks every day, therefore his or her argument cannot possibly be believable. Silly example, but you get the point, I hope. This one is called poisoning the well, a subtype of ad hominem presenting adverse information about a target person with the intention of discrediting everything the target person says. Another variation is called circumstantial ad hominem, can't talk, stating that the arguer's personal situation or perceived benefit from advancing a conclusion means that their conclusion is wrong. Tone policing, focusing on emotion behind or resulting from a message rather than the message itself as a discrediting tactic. And these are only to name a few logical fallacies that people use every day. Now here is an example I heard recently. Discrediting what a woman had to say because she was born just a few years after women were given the right to vote. Does anybody here think that's a little bit off? Uh, I do, anyway. So I see and hear this lack of logic regularly, and I think everyone needs to stop it, please, and think about what you are reading or saying or writing, and set an example for our children who are watching and listening about what educated, thinking people do for our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas Racci, I'm sorry, it's R-A-C-C-I-S. And Shannon Clement.
Hello, my name is Thomas Rackus, and I'm here tonight to make a brief statement. When I found out that Bridget Ziegler, a school board member whose children don't even attend public schools, was the vice president of a right-wing training facility to politicize our children by training people to take over our school boards and destroy public schools, I was furious. I know the majority of parents on the left and the right are horrified that things like this are occurring. Our children go to school to be prepared to live in the real world, not to be used as pawns for profit or political battles. Public school is one of the great equalizers, allowing all children a fair chance at receiving a good education. That is one of the things that makes America great. We don't have a society where children's lives are separated by a membership in an upper or lower class. Everyone is supposed to get a fair shot. That is what America has and should strive for. That's what public schools strive for. Unfortunately, some, like Ms. Ziegler, seem to be trying to destroy that for profit and culture wars. I know parents, at least the ones who wanted to be involved, can't come to events like this meeting and the grand opening of the Institute because they are working and taking care of these same children at those times. When I became disabled, I decided that I would try to, in what small ways I could, to participate in things, to make things better that others couldn't because of their jobs, when my health didn't get in the way. Because I could be at a protest of this horrible place and express the opinion of parents who would be doing it if not for the hardships of life and raising kids. Now, I don't expect anyone to believe what I say. I expect them to look at things and make up their own mind. Now, Friday, as I and about 20 others were peacefully protesting outside of VP Ziegler's new six-figure job grand opening, a blatant conflict of interest, we were assaulted by the presence of Billboard Chris, a right-wing internet personality who makes a living going to such political events and making videos of himself harassing and trying to out-talk the regular citizens who don't even know he's coming, for the amusement of the right-wing internet. Some of our group tried to talk with him and others refused when it became clear what his game was. Some tried to block his camera so he could not use his footage, as is our right. This man grabbed at least two signs, pushing them out of the way, ripping one and damaging one. I, for 3 seconds, was one of these, trying to block the camera as he harassed the people next to me and was pushed out of the way. For this, I, a disabled person in a wheelchair, was mocked and ridiculed online as an attacker and instigator. Now, Billboard Chris does this for a living and is part of the trash media that has so enveloped this world. But why was he here in Sarasota? As he states in his video, it's because the Leadership Institute, overthrower of school boards and cash cow of Bridget Ziegler, invited him as a paid speaker. Yes, this classy right-wing public school killers thought this person...
Thank you very much.
Oops.
Shannon Clement, Dr. Jill Lewis-Spector.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? Or do I need is that better? Probably. Good evening, everybody. I am Shannon Clement. I'm a mother of a child currently enrolled in our school system, and as you could tell, I don't have my iPad in front of me, so I have nothing prepared this evening. I'm going completely off wing, which you would think after 15 years of improv training I would get over performance anxiety, but that's apparently not the case. Some of the things I wanted to point out is I watched the workshop today, and how amazing is it that we have a productive, calm, civil, common sense and logical workshop when everybody's on the same page and everybody's getting along. Number one, I appreciate again the transparency with the agenda. It was far more detailed this week than it has been in the past. I noticed that immediately, and Mr. Connor, I thank you for that because I've got to imagine you spearheaded that in some way, shape, or form. In regards to the reading programs, I spoke about that a lot with my last public comments. So again, thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for being transparent on that. Thank you, Mrs. Ziegler, for responding to me to kind of clarify that. I appreciate those things. They go a long way. Which brings me back around to common sense and common ground. Isn't it amazing what we can do when those two things are actually put into play on a regular basis? And meanwhile, we have people bringing up motions that aren't technically on the agenda this evening in this particular chamber, which I thought was interesting. Even more so interesting to me is that we constantly are arguing over what definitions happen to be. Equity is impartiality. That's what equity means. How that applies to every person is going to be different, but equity is impartiality, and we all deserve that. Our students especially deserve impartiality and the ability to come to a safe, well-rounded, age-appropriate, safe, and secure classroom with teachers that care about them, regardless of how they present, where they're from, what their parents do, what religion they follow, or any other means of things going on outside that room that realistically speaking have nothing to do with them unless we, the adults, bring it to the table. So I'd like you all to think about that moving forward. Everybody in this room, everybody that comes up to this podium, everybody that is making policy for children such as mine need to bear in mind that we can accomplish so much more when we put all the BS aside and focus on common sense and common ground. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Jill Lewis-Spector, Michelle Posey.
Good evening, Board and Dr. Connor. I'm Dr. Jill Lewis-Spector. Recent approval by Florida's Department of Education of PragerU Kids as supplementary material for K-12 classrooms is concerning. PragerU material is completely inappropriate for Sarasota school children. There's overwhelming evidence that PragerU Kids is based on extreme ideology. Georgetown University's Bridge Initiative concludes PragerU spreads anti-Muslim rhetoric and conspiracy theories, as is evident in such videos as The Dangers of Islamism. The Southern Poverty Law Center reports more than a few videos function as dog whistles to the extreme right. PragerU violates separation of church and state required of public schools. One video wrongly claims the Founding Fathers never said they wanted separation of church and state. Another has Christopher Columbus telling kids that slavery was better than being killed. This material is dangerous in the hands of Sarasota's children. PragerU isn't a traditional vendor, it's free. It's not an accredited university. Its creators don't have vast education backgrounds, and their website says their intention is purely indoctrination of poor conservative values. Given this, why would Florida's Department of Education approve Prager Kids? The department says it aligns to Florida's revised civics and government standards. No argument there. The department insists on teaching whitewashed history, untruthful accounts of African American experiences, and attempts to insert Christian dogma into public school curriculum. The governor says he's fighting indoctrination. During 2023 training provided by the department, educators were told explicitly to avoid the use of any solicited theories or strategies that may lead to student indoctrination. How then does it justify approving these materials? PragerU materials shouldn't be available in any Sarasota district classrooms, but if teachers decide to use them, parents' rights include being able to object to something being taught. Florida statute states each district school board must adopt a policy regarding an objection by a parent or resident of the county to the use of a specific material. Parents who object to their children being indoctrinated by PragerU must insist on an opt-out provision for any use of it with their kids. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Michelle Posey, Elizabeth Bornstein.
Hi, Michelle Posey. A couple of things. I wanted to first, I want to try to start off with something positive. I finally got to see the renderings and the drawings for the new Welland Park High School, and I'm blown away, and I'm a little jealous that I'm above the age to attend. So thank you for doing that, and I look forward to the opening of that. I wanted to touch base briefly on an incident that came up not far from my home, because I live real close to Cranberry Elementary. That's where my son attended. But there was a parent that reached out to me who was intercepted by the principal at Cranberry Elementary and not able to walk her, I'm not sure if it was 4 or 5-year-old child, in on the first day of school. So I just wondered, we talk about student behavioral policy and discipline. What kind of discipline is in the chamber for teachers that take that away, or I'm sorry, for principals that take that right away? You only get one chance at the first day of school. You don't get a do-over. And so I'm hoping that maybe you'll address what, if anything, was done in follow-up to that. I also wanted to talk a little bit about our finances. I'm seeing a lot, or hearing a lot, about families and parents that are needing to bring an excessive amount of supplies with their children to school. Now, I don't have to tell you what our economy looks like. People are already feeling the crunch. But I'm struggling to find out why, with a $1 billion budget, we have to supply anything. The taxpayers already pay for this education. Why are they needing to bring things like paper towels and paper for the printer, for the school printer? That I think, for example, I know, Mr. Edwards, you do have your expenditure. It's really it concerns my heart that we can't do something like that for the teachers. No teacher should have to dip into their pockets. They don't make enough anyway, so I really hope that we can find a way to fix that. And lastly, I just wanted to talk from the heart for a moment with Mr. Connor, because I sense that maybe there might be an olive branch to the community as you come in and as you're making your way. I have to tell you, in full honesty and disclosure, you weren't my first choice. You weren't my second choice. And it's been a bit of discontention, understanding that those that I fought to elect didn't bother to address that. So many of us were not in favor of your hiring. But you're here, and I'm excited to see what you can do, because God can work miracles through anybody. But I would like for you to publicly maybe explain to me your ties to an organization called Chiefs for Change. I'm a little alarmed because they are tied to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, gave them about $500,000. And that organization's ties to strange depopulation doesn't exactly warm my heart. I'd like to know if you agree with their statement that they help educators get past implicit biases, which is another word to me for critical race theory. I just want to know if you could explain that a little bit to the public, and how that might affect your strategic plan going forward, or any professional learning. Thank you, guys, and God bless you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Bornstein, Nicholas Machuca.
Good evening, board members, superintendent, board attorney, student representative. I'm Elizabeth Bornstein, and I'm here as a parent, not politics, not drama, just as a parent. Day 4, we're here. It's the school year, right? That's what it's all about, the children and our school environment. And I'm so relieved. Day 4, I launched a middle schooler. I was more nervous than my child, who happens to be settling in beautifully. I'm relieved, but not surprised. You know why? Because you have some phenomenal people on your team. Principals, assistant principals, the teachers, right? These teachers who actually emailed on the weekend before school started, who actually acknowledged a nervous parent's email asking some questions about some things that weren't figured out yet. Teachers who are heart and soul in this. We need to shine the light on them and thank them, and all of the other staff and everyone. I mean, there's too many people to thank for the fact that here we are, day 4. And I think overall, it's pretty good, right? Right? We spend so much time on things that make me nervous, which is why I come here, right? The mental health of our children, the safety of our children, the academic achievement of our children, sustaining and growing public education in our community. Unfortunately, there's a lot of sidebar politics happening that get in the way of this initiative. I'm here as a parent. I'm here for my child who's a student. And I just want to reiterate that leadership is not being in charge. It's about taking care of people in your charge. That's what Simon Sinek said. I've said that quote before. Mr. Connor, thank you for coming here and giving our community a sense of hope. Once again, we haven't felt that in a while. You're doing a good job. You said you share the district's vision for keeping learning at the center of everything we do and have seen great things that can happen when educators and families are committed to doing that. I've spent these last 4 days invested in seeing what's happening at school and helping for that success of my child. I hope that that's afforded for all children. My wish for you, the school board, is to stay as uber-focused as Mr. Connor is on the heart of what brings you to your work on behalf of these students, the families and children, and staff rather, and on the mission and vision of Sarasota schools.
Thank you.
Working as one for the success of all.
Thank you. Nicholas Machuca, Jessica Thomason.
Thank you, Board. I'm here representing Equality Florida's 3,204 members and supporters here in Sarasota County. We oppose several new developments in Florida's education system, including the Department of Education's false and offensive new standards on African American history. To speculate that American chattel slavery provided any sort of benefit to the souls enslaved is asinine and repulsive. It is also completely ahistorical, a figment of one's imagination clawing for a bright side to one of this country's original sins. We ask that this board go on record opposing this grotesque interpretation of our history. Additionally, it has come to our attention that material from the fringe group PragerU may be used in some Florida classrooms. PragerU is not a legitimate provider of academic materials. It is not a reliable or accredited resource, and I can't believe I'm having to say this, it's not even a real university. It's not affiliated with an institution of higher education. Prager produces conservative indoctrination videos, and none of it has any place in public schools. If parents want their children to learn false information, then by all means, those parents can send their kids off to PragerU, wherever that is. It is alarming that we're even having this discussion. So we ask that this board go on record opposing the use of inappropriate and unfounded Prager material in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica Thomason, Bill Neese.
Good evening, Board. My name is Jessica Thomason. I'm the parent of 2 children in public schools here in Sarasota County. I just wanted to touch on something that was mentioned today in the workshop. I know it was mentioned that 80% of employees do not take out family coverage. And so for those people, the 19% rate increase won't affect them. But is it actually that they don't have dependents to cover, or is it that they can't afford to spend nearly $1,000 of their paycheck each month on the cost of covering their families? Teacher shortages and staff vacancies are lower than average here than in the rest of Florida because we do have a great district. There's a lot of great stuff about our district, but it's still a concern, and so is teacher retention. It was mentioned that the average age of teachers here is 50, which raises the cost of health insurance, understandably. If you want to attract younger teachers to skew your average age below 50, you have to offer benefits that are usable to them. A young educator with children in this district really cannot afford to work here unless they have a spouse carrying health insurance for their children. Please consider finding a health insurance option that your employees can afford to take out on their families without contributing nearly 25% of their pay for health insurance. It's a huge barrier to recruitment, and every teacher that I personally know with children does not have their child insured because they simply cannot afford to do so, not because that's really what they want to do. We say we value the mental health of our students and we don't want health care in schools, but if a child whose parent works here needs health care, they can't get it. They don't have it. And then in addition to this, every new employee, which I found out when I applied to be a substitute teacher, and I went ahead and paid this and went through the process, but they have to pay for their own background check and their own drug screen, which no place I've ever worked has ever required that. This is not the norm in any other industry. So I paid $150 out of pocket to do this, mainly because I have a job with health insurance. I can't afford to leave that job. But I'm interested in, getting into education and helping out and giving back. But for a job that pays less than that per day, to have to pay that out of pocket to even get started is kind of crazy to me. In addition to this, it's not quite as expensive, but volunteers in the district also have to pay for their own background check and drug screen. And so that means that parents in like Title I schools where we need volunteers the most, if they want to be a level 2 volunteer, they have to pay, I think it's like $60. And so for parents who are already struggling a little bit more, or maybe it's, you know, it's a bigger burden for them to take a day off work to volunteer, on top of losing their pay for the day, they have to pay $60 out of pocket and go through that screening. The screening I'm fine with, it's the cost. It's cost prohibitive to those parents. So those are just my little things to say today. I would just love you to all contemplate a way to work around that and make it more accessible. I also want to thank Mr. Connor. I thought it was so awesome to see your listening tour. But what struck me in particular is so many things in the district are, they're scheduled in the middle of the day. And so I appreciate that being after hours where parents can attend. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bill Neese, and then Mary Holmes.
My name is Bill Neese, and I have a couple of grandchildren in the district, and long-term resident, and a taxpayer, like all of us. So today I would like to thank the school board for the progress and the consistency in developing a new vision for the school district. Our district has been through some struggles, but I believe in intention and purpose, you're heading in the right direction. I believe that hard work that you are showing, like in the regular workshops, is paying off. And in reality, anybody that's ever been in construction, which I happen to be in, along with other things, it's very easy to tear down a house, but it's difficult to build one back up. And so building from foundational things takes some time. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate you all working together to accomplish that. And I want to commend you for the progress that has been made. And taking those, let's say, foundational stones and beginning to build on them are very important. Part of my vision as a citizen, as I have developed an education coalition, is to increase the reading scores in our district, and not only this district, but in Manatee. We have seen tremendous advancements through pilot programs here in Sarasota and Manatee. And I believe that those types of advancements are going to change the course of early childhood education. Just recently, we received a report that 100% of our students at Wilkinson grade school got to grade level in the after-school program. That's basically unheard of. In a Manatee just recent program that we held this summer, we advanced all children that were trying to get into 4th grade from a kindergarten level, or excuse me, pre-kindergarten level to a 2nd grade level in one summer program. Now this is revolutionary, and my hope is that as we cooperate and work together as community, we can see these tremendous advancements be expanded throughout our districts, and that is my hope. And just a little sideline, I've heard a lot of things about PragerU here today. Just to dispel a couple of things, Dennis Prager happens to be Jewish. He's not anti-Jewish. And PragerU uses all kinds of experts across America to explain things from a perspective that is highly educated, including some of the greatest experts in our nation. So, you know, that's just maybe a little counterbalancing argument or thought that might be given to the school board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mary Holmes.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Connor. My name is Mary Holmes, and I've taught for a really, really long time. I thought I'd try a different approach this evening, prayer. So please feel free to bow your head, stand on your head, or just sit back and listen for a few minutes. Heavenly Father, I come to you tonight to pray for deliverance from the sanctimonious, ill-spirited, blasphemous, unchristian tirades that one particular individual spews at every meeting. She invokes your name in a most unholy manner, using it in a pitiful attempt to insult, demonize, and threaten your children. She confuses a microphone and podium with her own personal political platform. In all sincerity, please allow everyone who is listening know your reassurance that you easily discern the difference between sanctity and sanctimonious, that you never confuse true faith and one's good deeds with bi-weekly self-righteous rhetoric, invoking your name in blasphemous, homophobic, racist rants. In your inimitable way, please let my tribe be aware that I'm quite certain that they have not bowed their heads in supplication. They can redeem themselves by purchasing the first round of your most unholy water at our next happy hour. The God with whom I have conversations has a sense of humor. So please give Tom, Karen, Robin, and all board members the freedom to smile, grin, or just give me a thumbs up for my speech finally coming in under 3 minutes, as brevity is not the quality for which I am best known. Now that's a miracle. 176 more learning opportunities. That's about it. Talk to you soon privately. Amen. Peace out.
And that concludes our public comment for today. Sure, come on up, Mrs. Testerman.
I do find it concerning that my card disappeared, but I did hand it in behind Nick, and Nick was there, and the officer was outside, and I handed it to the female officer
It's okay,
outside.
we're good.
I'm not good.
Okay, well,
Good
you have a few
evening.
minutes.
Good evening. My name is Paulina Testerman, and I have 2 children in Sarasota Public Schools. I'm grateful that the board seems to be finding some stability with the addition of our new superintendent, Mr. Connor. Many of us already see that you value transparency, Mr. Connor, simply by the tone of your communications. For once in a really long time, Sarasota is hopeful. And while I want to focus on the positive so badly, and I want to look at the horizon and see the potential for our schools, every single time I try, I am distracted with yet another post, tweet, or antic of Mrs. Ziegler's. She just can't help herself. My goal as a mother, a community member, and as a human being is to continually drag corruption and evil into the light. And I will do that over and over again at this podium. The beauty of my position, Mrs. Ziegler, is that I don't even have to invent a narrative. I simply get to use your own words against you. Watch this. During the September 20th school board meeting, Mrs. Ziegler stated, and I quote, "So I will be the first to tell every single person part of the LGBTQIA community, I care about you as much as I care about every single person in this community. You matter." Just 7 short months later, Mrs. Ziegler parades around social media in a transphobic t-shirt which states, "Real women aren't men." Which is it, Mrs. Ziegler? Because the LGBTQIA community includes the T, and here you are making your transphobia blatantly clear. But that's not all. That same week, during the April 4th school board meeting, Mrs. Ziegler stated, and I quote, "As a board member, I believe in respecting and celebrating the diverse community that we have." 31 seconds later, Mrs. Ziegler doubles down on her transphobic t-shirt and says, quote, "The one that I wore is 1,000% true, and I will stand behind that all day long." Will the real Mrs. Bridget Ziegler please stand up? Our community has whiplash from your double talk. Now, it's important to state that I'm not here to debate LGBT plus issues, because I believe that regardless of which side of the aisle you stand, our community can agree that any politician who blatantly lies over and over again doesn't deserve to be holding office. It's also important to explain that this is just one example of Mrs. Ziegler's double talk, and I'm going to make it my mission to be her personal spotlight and remind our community that this is the result of electing politicians who love power and divisiveness instead of electing school board members who care about our community and our children. Mrs. Ziegler, you talk out of both sides of your mouth because you're pandering to anyone who will listen, because you think that our voters are too dumb to notice. I apologize to the board and our community if I don't show up and focus on our reading scores and our teacher shortages every time I speak. I truly believe that being a lighthouse for the causes of problems is just as important as finding solutions to those problems. In the spirit of Ms. Barbara Vaughn, Mrs. Ziegler, I also pray that you turn your life around.
And that concludes public comments. Just a couple comments that I have from some statements made. I wanted to highlight, I know that there was a mention about the walking students to school. I know that Mr. Renoff, I forwarded over an email, and I know that there was additional communication. I know that last year it was a little bumpy halfway through the year. I want to thank Mr. Connor. You came out very clearly with communication. I think it was a priority of this community, and it really isn't as rocky as I think a lot of people's angst initially thought it would be, but just wanted to clarify that that was addressed. There were a couple other things that I wanted to highlight. Today, we do have on, just for discussion, item number 28, which was referenced. It's the strategic plan. So we're going to go through consent agenda and then discussion on the strategic plan. We wanted to make sure we put it on the agenda for transparency purposes, but because there was still pending discussion on what those next steps will be, I think we addressed it briefly today at the workshop, and then new business. I also want to say I appreciate the new in-depth agenda that the superintendent put together. I think you provided a lot of clarity on a lot of the items, and for that, I thank you. If there are no additional comments, I wanted to ask if there are any additions or corrections to the agenda.
Madam Chair, we do have two addendums that were added to item 4, which is the instructional classified personnel report.
Very good. Is there a motion to for the consent agenda?
I move for approval of the consent agenda as amended.
I have a motion. I have a motion and a second. Are there any comments? Seeing none, please vote on the motion before you. Vote. Come on. And the motion passes unanimously to approve the consent agenda as amended. Moving on then, excuse me, to item number, I believe it's 28.
28.
If there, again, this was open up for discussion. If there's any, I know that I know that as we look at new superintendent, a new makeup of the board, I would concur that there is a lot of need for clarity and simplicity, and I wrote down just a refocus on academics, and so I think that has been shared across the board, not only by the way the community, but many of the board members. But I think there's been concerns certainly with the budget, and then also even today's conversation. So as far as moving the next step, wanting to see what that path forward looks like when it pertains to the strategic plan. Mr. Connor, do you have any?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, having taken a look at the strategic plan and hearing from each board member one-on-one in our discussions about the strengths of the strategic plan and the areas of opportunity, I think it's incumbent upon anyone who transitioned into this role to take a look at the makeup of the current strategic plan to see what can we sustain and build off of, and what things maybe we can revise, change, or add to. So that's going to be a part of this process through the 100-day transition, and it'll move beyond probably that 100 days. Depending on the direction of this board, I am open to doing whatever the board decides to do. If that's throw the baby out with the bathwater and let's start from scratch, or let's take a look at what things have been put in place that we want to continue and sustain and build upon, and just maybe tweak. I'm fully open to the direction of the board as it pertains to the strategic plan.
Thank you very much. Mr. Enos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also would, I would agree that, when I look at strategic plans and being at the sheriff's office for many years, and I've had this discussion with Superintendent Connor, at the end of the day, it comes down to our mission is in regard to educating kids, and I believe our strategic plan should be about educating kids and getting them to a specific level, and what is the plan to achieve that, because I know that we have the staff, we have the leadership in order to get to be the #1 in the state, not only in the nation, and I've heard that from Superintendent Connor as he spoke before. So I would request that. I think that, that was a different time and a place, and that when you really look at, we need to have tangible benchmarks that I believe, especially for our students, to be able to get to, as we look at a strategic plan, that this is where we want to go, and this is how we're going to do it, and this is what it's going to look like. And I would, my personal opinion is that when you look at something like that, as we would look at the sheriff's office, okay, so fentanyl is out in the community, there's a specific thing. How are we going to do to reduce that as it relates to crime prevention? Kind of here's how are we going to make our kids smarter, how are we going to increase our educational standards? And that's where I would like to see that. I think that when you look at a strategic plan is how do we get to be number one in the state where we used to be? How do we get to be number one in the country? And that would be my comment on the strategic plan.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Rose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to see the strategic plan focused on academic achievement. I believe that with Superintendent Connor and the reorganization of the district, your team is incredibly strong. I believe we have teachers that are ready for us to focus in on instruction and learning in the classroom and the progress monitoring and all the tools to go along with that. I have made a motion. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to move to place the current strategic plan on hold.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion, a second to put this current strategic plan on hold. Does the maker of the motion want to elaborate, or are you concluded speaking?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for that opportunity. My motion right now is to place it on hold, point blank, and to give the superintendent the opportunity to work with his staff to introduce where he's recommending we go. I mean, I believe that academic achievement, we're on the cusp of great success here, and look to your lead. I think that this board has, from Mr. Edwards to Mr. Enos to Mrs. Ziegler, Mrs. Marinelli, we have all agreed that academic achievement is our focus, and I think a strategic plan that reflects that and allows us to see the growth, what you need as a superintendent, what this community needs, what our students need, and what our teachers and schools need, will be a tremendous success asset as well.
Thank you very much. Mr. Edwards.
Thank you. I think I've said this before, and Mr. Connor echoed it in the sense that a strategic plan should always be under a continuous improvement model. So I don't disagree with anything that anyone has said up to this point, and I would be most interested in hearing Mr. Connor's approach as to how to deal with the strategic plan. But my concern obviously is that instead of our staff being focused on trying to write a strategic plan, that our staff is more focused in at the academic achievement level, and that I've said this also, that a superintendent reset is disruptive, and Mr. Connor and I have had those conversations. So I'm hoping that the hiatus of this plan, giving you that 100 days to make your recommendations, make your suggestions, and if that means throwing the baby out with the bathwater, which I hope is not the solution, then so be it. But I'm okay with waiting for your 100th day.
Thank you. Mrs. Marinelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with what everybody has said. I think it is prudent to put this strategic plan on hold. I have great faith in our superintendent and staff, and I would like to have teachers have some input on this strategic plan, because they're going to be the ones that are going to be implementing a lot of it, because it is going to be reading, and we owe the respect to our teachers. They work hard. We need to narrow the focus down so they can do what they do best, and that is teach and care for kids. So I was not on the board when this strategic plan was approved, but I watched it on TV, and it was, in my opinion, it did not focus enough on academics. And I am not saying the things that it did focus on are not important, but it needs to have the academic focus, and I support 100% putting it on hold.
Thank you very much. I also do support that. I don't believe that, I agree with what Mr. Edwards said as far as I don't want to refocus any of our staff's time and energy on writing any kind of document or coming up. But however, in my conversations with Mr. Connor and my own personal opinion, I don't believe that our educators at the school level or the administrative central office level will be lost without this piece of this document be putting on hold. My hope is, as we move forward, very similarly, as was said, is that if you look at our workshops, not just today, but even in the past, when we are laser focused on key elements that we know will impact each and every student when it comes to their academics, we all agree, and have a healthy discussion. So that's the kind of thing that I hope to see in our strategic plan. I hope that moving forward, and that's my goal, and I'm pleased as this has moves forward, that we try to keep us away from any kind of landmines that just we know that will end up getting deterring our focus. And so, and that seems unlikely in education these days, but I think it is possible. And I think we have an opportunity to illustrate that. So I am very eager to put this on hold with the knowledge and commitment that we are all coming together with the laser focus of the academic piece, and then modeling good behavior where we don't have to have all those extra words in those elements in the strategic plan. And then my guess would be that you would do so after the 100 days. However we come up with this, I think that the final part is that the community want to see specifically what that is and where we go from there.
Thank you. So I think I have clear direction. I just want to point out one very important thing is that one voice that has to be included in this process as a collective is the board.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that we dedicate time through a workshop and as a starting point to this before we go out, and then we'll meet with teachers and meet with staff and the community around what priorities they see moving forward for this district.
Very good. So I have a motion and a second to suspend or put this current strategic plan on hold. Are there any additional comments? If not, I will take a voice vote, and I will start with Mr. Edward. Oh, hey, never mind. We'll just wait for the tally. There. And the motion passes unanimously. Moving on to the next item, I have item number 29. Is there a motion?
I move to request to hold a private meeting concerning settlement negotiations and/or strategy sessions related to litigation expenditures for confidential versus School Board of Sarasota County, Florida, case number 2022-CA004924-NC, pursuant to Florida Statute Section 286.0118 on October 17th, 2023.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments? Seeing none, please vote on the motion before you. And the motion to authorize a litigation strategy session passes unanimously. Moving on to the next item of new business, is there a motion?
I move for approval of the new job description for Director of Strategic Engagement.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any comments? I just wanted to ask the superintendent, I know that kind of lining up very much with moving in a direction that's laser focused on academics. I know there were some questions about certain positions and what have you, and I don't know if you can elaborate on that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bringing forth this job description tonight, as you know, as I'm coming in and I'm evaluating and analyzing our needs and some of the gaps that I see, this, I believe, will be a perfect opportunity to have someone really lead the initiatives around engaging our stakeholders internally, from staff, volunteers, and then externally with local business partners, foundations. There needs to be a pivotal role and someone who owns that engagement, because we know that our teachers, our leaders do an outstanding job, but it is the strength of the community and the engagement of all the stakeholders within this community that if we leverage and we make that laser-like focus on academic achievement, that's going to accelerate us achieving our goals faster. So I bring forth this job description because I do think we need someone who, through a very data-driven, metric-driven, tied to our strategic plan, having outcomes of engaging these various stakeholders, this person can lead that charge and would work under the direction of the chief academic officer so that we ensure that things like attendance, things like our lower quartile reading have more eyes on it, more focus on it, and more resources to help make sure that kids are in school. Support is needed for students who are struggling, whether that's reading, math, science, whatever the case may be. This person will help support that effort. So I'm bringing forth this job description in alignment with that priority.
Wonderful. Are there any comments? Okay. If there are no additional comments, please vote on the motion before you. And the motion to approve the new job description for Director of Strategic Engagement as presented passes unanimously. Next item of new business, is there a motion?
I move for approval of the contract between the Stepping Stones Group and the School Board of Sarasota County for the purpose of contracting 15 paraprofessionals, paraeducators for Oak Park School.
I have a motion, a second. Are there any comments? Second. Oh, I have a motion. Is there a second? Sorry. That's good. The motion is second by Mrs. Marinelli. Yes. Are there any comments? Seeing none, please vote on the motion before you. And the motion passes. A motion to approve the contract between Stepping Stones Group and the School Board of Sarasota County for the purpose of contracting 15 paraprofessionals for Oak Park School passes unanimously. That concludes new business. Are there any additional comments? Mrs. Rose?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to recognize our community superintendent Connor, the executive staff, principals, teachers, the entire community for the incredibly smooth start to the school year for all of our students. Very much appreciated on all counts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's a great way. I'll welcome clapping for that. No, okay.
I would just be remiss. That has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with those people out there and the people who are out in our schools making this stuff happen. It's really incumbent upon that.
Absolutely. Mrs. Marinelli.
I just wanted to thank everybody also, and I won't repeat, but I think it stems from excellent leadership from our superintendent to our district staff, to our principals, APs, teachers, counselors, everybody. So thank you, parents, community, for making everything successful. And Superintendent Connor, I have to say, I really do like how you've changed the agenda. I don't know how it can be much more transparent without everything being a book. So thank you for that. And that has, I think, already alleviated a lot of questions from our community and public. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Well, I again want to thank everyone for a great start of school. I think that as we move into this year, I know that we are truly committed to supporting our staff. I think that the conversation that came up recently about supplies, I think is really important. I know we've addressed it previously as a board. That's not lost on me, and I don't want to speak for my other board members, but I know historically that's an area that we do focus on as well. And so I look forward to having conversations about that, not just at the beginning of the year, but throughout the year. One other piece I wanted to say is I love the schedule or what that you have as far as a listening tour, and I want to encourage us to do that on an annual basis and not just when we have a new superintendent. So hopefully that doesn't happen anytime soon. If there are no additional, I closed my book too early, my apologies. If there are no additional comments, I don't see any. The board members and the superintendent will be attending a retreat for professional development on Thursday, August 24th at 9 a.m. being held as we rent space. I think we want to clarify this. The Gulf Coast Community Foundation Philanthropy Center in Sarasota. We are renting space there. They are not facilitating the training. The next regular board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, September 5th at 3 p.m. The board meeting scheduled for Tuesday, September 19th will be held at Venice Performing Arts Center at Venice High School starting at 6:30. One last thing I want to make note of is every time, anytime a board meets, it is public, it's available for the public. That would include a retreat, just because I think there were questions about that. So anytime the board is convening together, it is considered a public meeting, whether action is taken or not. So if there are no additional comments, without objection, we stand adjourned. Thank you so much.